So what's going on with Solo Sikoa? Because I gotta tell you, right now, I'm starting to turn around on him a little bit. Starting to enjoy myself, starting to enjoy his work a little bit more. What has happened in the last 2-3 weeks that Solo Sikoa is starting to break out a little bit into this new character? Since Solo came up to main roster and he was revealed under the hoodie as part of the bloodline with Roman Reigns, he's always been the enforcer. He's always been the silent one that people aren't sure of, that he's menacing and deadly and people should watch out for Solo. And as the bloodline story has evolved and we saw everything kind of crumble and Solo has announced himself and put himself at the head of the table with the Ulafala, saying that he's in charge of the bloodline, he's got these mercenaries, he's in charge of this whole new group, and presumably the final boss, The Rock, is actually on the tippy top of the whole thing. But since WrestleMania 40 and Solo coming in and trying to be the leader of the bloodline, taking out Kevin Owens, Cody, Randy, Paul Heyman, doing the promos in the ring, asking the crowd to acknowledge him, he is not my tribal chief, trying to do the smoky vignettes and the backstage things, always trying to be very intimidating. And throughout this journey with Solo, I've never bought him as tribal chief. I've never found him to be the scary guy. Jacob Fatu is the scary guy to me. Now I'll give WWE some slack and feel like, well, maybe that is part of the character. Solo has to puff himself up and be bigger and badder than ever, and he's really just kind of tricking himself and kidding himself into thinking that he is really the leader. It's just all part of Solo's whole thing, is that he is insecure about being leader because he's just appointed himself as such, but he keeps losing. He lost to Cody twice, and every which way he just gets dummied by Roman Reigns. But then something started to happen, and it was when Roman started to come back, and now Jimmy came back. And Jay is getting back and involved in the bloodline. And we're starting to see the shift in Solo's character. And it's a big positive. I think WWE is starting to see that Solo's character needs a change. Doing the same tropes and the same approach week after week, month after month is starting to get a little flat. And you're bringing in more dynamics of Jimmy and Jay and Roman again. The formula has to change up. And what I'm enjoying on TV is seeing Solo almost loosen up a little bit.
Any place, anytime.
Trying to go from the intimidating heel to now kind of snarky, poking fun at people, being a little goofy, a little bit unhinged. When he shows up on Raw to interfere with Jay in his Intercontinental title match, announcing that he's got tickets, that little moment right there, that was it for me. When I was thinking about what has changed for Solo, that was the moment. And it's such a small thing. It's not this big epic promo that he did or anything. It's a small tweak in his character that he's a little bit more relaxed. There's a little bit more comedy in there, but he's still bringing the ruthlessness. He's still using the intimidating forces of his bloodline and his mercenaries to attack Jey Uso. Or they go over to Smackdown the other day and Jay is in the ring with him. Jay's telling Jacob Fatu not to look at him like that. He's got a big pop and the crowd is very excited for things to happen to Jacob Fatu. But then you even get the moments in the tag team match between Motor City Machine Guns and the Bloodline, and they're all standing in the ring and they're gonna decide if they're gonna have the tag team title match right then and there. And Solo makes a little jab and just says that you're gonna make an impact. And he throws that line at Motor City Machine Guns. It's those things, those little tweaks in his character that help stand out and separate him, where the fans can react better than just him saying, I am your tribal chief. If he flipped the script and he went to Motor City Machine Guns and just said, you need to acknowledge me as the tribal chief, and they do this standard trope of, no, you don't get a title shot for our tag team titles. We will say when we do, and then they separate and show's over, or there's a beatdown at the end. It's kind of They went a different direction. They had the tag team match. Machine Guns won the tag team titles within their first month, less than a couple of weeks of being on TV. You can start playing with Solo's character more and making him more unhinged. He's losing control, because now you're seeing the dynamic shift where you are gonna get Roman back in, and you have Jay back in there, and you have Jimmy back in there, and Jimmy and Jay have now reunited. If they were gonna go on the same path with Solo, where he was just doing the straightforward, I'm the tribal chief, acknowledge me stuff, and just trying to go very ultra serious against Roman Reigns, I think it was going to hurt him in the long run. And I was wondering why we were starting to see this tiny little shift in character and dynamic. I wonder if WWE realized this and they're like, we gotta pivot him a little bit, or maybe it's just the dynamics at play. Maybe it's the fact that Solo now has more to work with. Look at what was going on for the last, how long has it been since Mania? A couple of months. But since WrestleMania, what has Solo been doing? Trying to build this bloodline story, trying to build this character and this new bloodline, and fighting off Cody and Randy and Kevin Owens month after month after month. But now the dynamics change and you have bigger personalities, more dynamic personalities with a ton of history, where you have his actual brothers, Jimmy and Jay, in the ring with him and being able to bounce off of him. Where you have Roman Reigns in there too, who is now being able to loosen up as well because he's the babyface. He's allowed to be a babyface with the crowd. And they're gonna have those moments of Jimmy and Jay and Roman in the ring together and uniting once again, and then probably Sami Zayn too. And once you get this old bloodline and new bloodline and more interactions, you start getting into what made Bloodline so good. And one of the things that made the original Bloodline so fun and entertaining was all the backstage segments and that dynamic and the characters and the relationships between them, the funny parts and the serious stuff. And we've never gotten that with Solo and his bloodline. And I understand you're trying to portray them as these like crazy, don't mess with heels that are just unhinged and they're gonna go after everybody and attack everything on Smackdown. I understand that, but we've never seen really anything backstage of Jacob Fatu and Solo and their dynamic. The Tongas, how do they feel about Solo? Get little glimpses of it with Jacob, Ulafala, and being pulled back by Solo. But now I think fans are ready to see Solo Sikoa do a little bit more. And could be a similar arc that Jey Uso went down. Jay's character, and he broke out as main event Jey Uso because of the Bloodline storyline. He was allowed to separate himself as a tag team partner and develop his own character. And it took a while. And we saw Jay and Roman in that dynamic during the pandemic, the one-on-one matches, tag team matches, like we've seen so much. I think WWE has an opportunity with Solo because he's done a good job, but it's been a lot of rinse and repeat to this point of his character. And if they can take those moments like he's done on Raw at ringside, or the little jabs and the little quirks and funny lines and those things that just kind of make you sit up a little bit and listen a little bit more, if they can do more of that with Solo, then you're going to be able to take his character to another level. And then me as a fan, I'm going to want to see him in those one-on-one matches and those promos going off against Roman Reigns, going up against Jey Uso and Jimmy, and being able to kind of just jog it back and forth on the microphone. Because the other thing is that you can't have everybody in that group of new bloodline being just stoic, mean, never talking heels. If all 4 members of that group don't ever talk and they're just, we're mean because we're mean, that formula can get stale and then they need to do something to heighten it. And I think we're seeing that with Solo a little bit here. The question mark too is going to be what happens when The Rock comes back? Because The Rock is obviously going to overshadow a lot of WWE and the whole Bloodline storyline to get us to Rock and Roman at Mania, or Rock, Cody, Roman, whatever the dynamic is. And then you're left with, well, what's gonna happen to Solo? You could be left with, at that point, the crumbling of the new Bloodline, and you get maybe Jacob Fatu versus Solo. Because while the original Bloodline were heels, the crowd loved them because of their relationships, because sometimes they would break character. They weren't always super serious about things. And if you get that with Solo, you're gonna endear him with the crowd. And eventually, you might even end up turning him babyface because that's what the crowd is gonna wanna see.